Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. Cool. We'll give another minute kind of for people to filter in from lunch. So first of all, thanks, Mike, for having me. And it's really cool to be on this stage. I hope that our industry in general will be on this stage more and more as the years go by and we integrate into the classic economy. I'd love to get a quick show of hands. Who's heard of Bancor in the room? Some people. And who understands what Bancor does? Fewer people. Cool. And how many people in here are launching a token or have launched a token? Cool. Great. So I love to start off with this slide. Any useful statement about the future should at first seem ridiculous. Just to contextualize and remind everyone, we're doing something really new here. We're creating money out of thin air, so to speak. People or governments have done this before, but we're doing it for the first time. In general, with innovation, things sound a little crazy to begin with, but in hindsight, these evolutions make a lot of sense. This was taken in downtown Palo Alto, where I was born and raised. An interesting place to be in, given the internet and where we find ourselves today in blockchain. How many people were at d10e in San Francisco? Just a couple. Cool. So what is money? I'm going to zoom out for a moment. Money is a tool for collaboration. You can think of money like the blood that moves through a system. You've got a bunch of organs that might work fine, but without the blood taking oxygen from place to place, they're not going to work. You can think of it like the water that flows through planet Earth. We're all here, and that's great, but without the water flowing through our bodies and flowing through the systems, also we're not going to work so great. There are kind of two ways that humans collaborate in general. We share information. And so information is ideas, knowledge. In modern times, these are texts, documents, images, videos. And we share value. So this is our time, our resources, things we've made, things we've bought. And there's a very significant difference between information and value, which is that information can be shared and not corrupted, right? I send you a video, I send you an image, I have it, you have it, and it works just the same. With value, it's very essential that it exists in only one place at one time. If I send you my money, it's very important that now you have it and I don't have it. You want the original. And this is why the internet has been so great for information sharing, and up until now, and the innovations we're seeing in blockchain, has not been as great for value sharing, because we've needed that trusted party in the middle to make sure that the value has indeed moved from place A to place B, is not copyable, and is not corruptible. So in both of these ways that humans share, whether it's information or value, we experience a problem known in economics as the double coincidence of wants. We need to, in real time, find the person that wants what we have and that we have something that they want in order for a trade to take place, right? So in information, we solve this problem with writing, with language. I no longer have to be right in the moment with you to tell you something and share it with you. I can write it down. The internet lets us share this over time, over space. Socrates can say something and I can read it now later. So that's how we solve the double coincidence of wants in information transfer. In value transfer, originally we used barter, right? I've got carrots, you've got tomatoes, we meet at the same time and place, you want what I have what you want, we make the trade. And humans invented money to remove the time and space parameter from the trade of value. So let's talk about money, this thing that we invented to help us collaborate, to help us share value between each other over time and space. Originally, I'd like to think of money as kind of going through these three major eras. We're now in the third and most exciting one. In the first era of money, money came from the earth. Money was gold, money was salt, money was oil, money was sticks or shells, whatever we could see, whatever we could count, whatever we could kind of mutually understand as valuable. We know how hard gold is to get from the earth. We can put a value on that. We know kind of approximately how much there is, or in a tribe maybe, we know how many shells or sticks we have. And so we can use this as a counting tool, essentially to say how much I've given, to the community, how much I've taken from the community, and this allows us to stay in a collaborative balance. In the next generation of money, money comes from governments, right? They print it for us, they distribute it for us, they decide how much of it there is, who gets it first, at what rate we rent it to the people, and of course everyone needs this tool to play the game of life, right? So we've gone from money comes from the earth to money comes from governments, and now we're entering a really exciting phase of money, which is that money comes from people. People. So anyone can invent a money, and thanks to blockchain technology, where we don't need to trust a central party to verify that this money is in fact moving from here to there, anyone can make it. So Bitcoin was, of course, the first, and when my team and I looked at this, we saw, wow, this is the first user-generated money. We come from an internet culture, we come from software products, and we know that when we see user-generated anything, there are going to be millions, right? If you think of user-generated content, if you think of video. So this is really, blockchain 1.0 brings us Bitcoin, the first user-generated currency. But when we look ahead, we see blockchain 2.0 brings us hundreds and thousands and soon hundreds of thousands and millions of currencies. A liquid currency is a valuable currency. If you've launched a token or are about to launch a token, you will all discover that if the token isn't liquid, the token isn't worth anything. Liquidity. So why does money work? Money works because it can become the thing that we want it to be at any given moment. You might want your money to become lunch. Someone else might want their money to become a car or a house. And so if your money cannot become anything that you want it to become in any given moment, it's effectively not money. And this liquidity constraint is known throughout history and is now becoming very well known to us in the token economy. So the way that we can think about liquidity in the regular economy is that only nations can create the kind of liquidity in their currency for it to be globally effective. Even within nations, we have a lot of diversity, right? The US dollar might be much more liquid than the Greek drachma, for example. So this funny picture is me at a place called Bretton Woods, the Bretton Woods Hotel in New Hampshire. I bring it up because it's kind of an interesting piece of economic history, and it's fun to talk about here in Davos as well. For those of you who don't know, Bretton Woods was the site of a financial world congress in 1945, so right after World War II. All of the major powers got together to define the new financial order, right? And there were two interesting proposals at the time. The big question was, what will be the global reserve currency? What will be the money that is the most liquid, that we use to do trade between us, that all things are denominated in? And there were two proposals on the table. One from the Americans, which was very simple. Let's use the US dollar. And the other from the British, and it was proposed by an economist called Keynes. Many of you probably know him in many contexts in economics, but his proposal at this conference was called Bancor. Let's create a supranational currency that will be essentially the trade currency between nations. No nation, no one specific nation will govern it, and we'll use it to balance payments between us. What Keynes thought and was going for was that attaching the global reserve currency privilege to any one specific nation would create kind of a lack of balance in the global system. That country would have a leg up on other countries. Their currency would be the most liquid, the most people would want it, and this could be considered problematic or unfair. And I love this picture because it's another sign of the time. So if you can see the text, it says a group of 9 men. So these are the guys that together decided on how we would move forward with the financial order. Of course, you know the story, how it goes, how it ends, which is the US dollar was chosen as the global reserve currency. It was considered very safe because it was backed by gold. And also politically speaking, the United States had the strongest hand to play at this conference after World War II. So fast forward to this group of men and women. This is my team. Looking at some of these developments, Bitcoin, and the things we've talked about here, we started building software for this era of user-generated money. So what does it look like when not only Bitcoin and not only Ether, but all of the tokens that you have here today, all of the ones you haven't yet heard of, these hundreds and thousands of tokens, what does it look like when anyone can create their own currency? And we started piloting some really interesting projects. This one's called Lev Market. It was a currency for mothers. It was called Hearts, and we issued it to a group of 20,000 mothers and allowed them to do trade between them. So you can imagine a lot of the products here were family-oriented, clothes, toys, things for kids, and what we saw was a tremendous amount of commerce between these mothers, only in Hearts, a random new currency never before heard of. This is just some images from the community, so you can see there was a pretty exciting level of engagement. Many, many mothers came to us and said, you know, before this, I wasn't buying anything for my children. All of my money was allocated to rent and to my car and to bills, and I had nothing left. And this currency, this Hearts, actually gave the mothers an opportunity to get a birthday cake from another mother for their children's birthday party, to get new clothes, to get new toys from other mothers within the community. So, you know, you ask yourself, why doesn't every community just create its own little monopoly money, and we'd be good to go? And I bring us back to the problem of liquidity. Because we live in a mobile world and not all of our needs are met within one community, if these Hearts are not liquid to other currencies, and especially to the currencies that we mainly use, still our national currencies, they're effectively unusable over time. So I bring you the smart token, and this is really what Bancor is working on. The whole story is meant to show some history of how we arrived at this problem. So at the time we thought of it in community currencies, but as you see here in this room, there are hundreds of currencies that we all know about that are all going to face this liquidity challenge. And so when we look at the modern technology landscape and we say we have smart contracts, we have programmable currencies, why not solve this liquidity problem inherently inside the currencies as we make them so that they are convertible and liquid from day one? So Bancor is promoting a standard for what we call smart tokens. It's a more complicated issue, and I'd love to talk to any of you about it, so please find me after this or reach out. But in a nutshell, the way that smart tokens work is that directly in the smart contract of a smart token, other tokens are held in balance. We call these connector tokens. So the Bancor network token holds an Ether connector. That's what connects it to the Ether economy. New smart tokens that are created hold the Bancor network token as a connector to the network. And essentially a set of formulas govern the relationship between the token supply and the connector balance that it holds in the smart contract. And this is how prices are set algorithmically between tokens. These are some of the formulas. I'll leave it to you to head to the website, download the white paper, and study this more in detail. But again, in a nutshell, the way that the ecosystem is designed is to maintain balance between all the tokens. Prices still rise when demand is climbing. Prices still fall when demand is falling. But the relationships between the tokens hold kind of a constant ratio between them. And this is how prices can be set formulaically, also without matching buyers and sellers. So in this new world of smart contracts, you can sell your token to a smart contract rather than to a person. You can buy your token from a smart contract rather than from a person. So this double coincidence of wants that we've talked about, you want to sell something and someone else wants to buy it, can now be taken care of programmatically through the software. This is the website. It's bancor.network for anyone who wants to study the concept more deeply. This guy, Bernard Lietaer, we're big fans of his work, and it's part of what brought us into the community currency space to begin with. Bernard was the co-architect of the euro. He actually resigned from the project when the political thrust of the euro went in a different direction from the system that he designed. He actually built it more on the Bancor principles, which was that the euro should be a supranational currency for all of Europe, and each country should maintain their local or their national currency and use the euro for trade between them. Of course, that's not the euro that we ended up with today, and if you fast forward, you see some of the cracks in the system, right? You see Greece and you see Spain, and you see the problems that they're having by kind of lumping everyone together under one monetary policy with very different fundamentals between the countries and between the economies. I'll wrap up. I'm right on the last slide. So just to kind of bring it all together, I love to share this. This slide from a book called From Bitcoin to Burning Man and Beyond, highly recommend. We all know of Metcalfe's law, right? So Metcalfe talked with us about what the internet is bringing to network value. So rather than broadcasting like a news channel or a newspaper from one central party to many, when you allow for peer-to-peer interactions like forums and like the things we see on the internet, you increase the network value by an exponent. Reed's law, a lesser-known law, actually says when you allow people to form groups and their own vision within the network, you increase the network value, the nodes, the number of ways that these nodes can connect to each other by an exponent of the exponent, right? So instead of n to the second, it's 2 to the n. And I posit to you that as we let people create their own currencies, as we let people form their own group networks in this modern crypto economy, we're going to see the largest exponential rise in value creation, which we call the long tail.
So in March, I get an email from Matt McKibben, part of the d10e community, says you gotta meet Galia when you're in Tel Aviv, because she just won 3rd place of the Coin Agenda prize, right? First place, sorry, in Coin Agenda. And you have to meet her because she's going to tell you this amazing story about this company called Bancor. It's a network, it's a protocol, it's an exchange, it's a currency. 3 hours later, dinner in Tel Aviv, got a headache, but confirmed as our first speaker for the 7th edition of d10e for June 6th. Somehow it worked out that June 12th, just 6 days later, their ICO was popping. And I saw the most unbelievable traction with 3 videos of her from 3 different events in San Francisco, Tel Aviv, New York, and Puerto Rico. And I thought it was so brilliant that you have the same person, a co-founder, who tells the same story in 10 to 15 minutes in 4 or 5 parts of the world, and that sold me. But when I met with her for 3 hours, we talked about so many things, I was confused after 3 hours. And then I watched those videos, and it cleared my head. So my point is, it's really, really useful as you're doing your roadshow to make sure you have a video and just keep putting those videos on your website so that your followers and 10,833 investors that invested in Bancor, many of them in the long tail, watched those videos. The beautiful thing they did one day before, they had the community come up with this brilliant Hollywood production video that really explained in a sci-fi, very graphic method what Bancor is. And again, it clicked in my mind, oh, that's what they do. So the more videos you produce and you have the community produce for you, the better it is. The other brilliant thing they did, and I have not seen any other ICO so far do, is the bounty program, which many people have been begging them to spin it off as its own entity and charge 5–10% of your bounties fee just to use their flow. Another great thing they did is they showed a demo. You could go in there and create your token. What do you want to call it? Put a picture, just like you create a profile on Facebook. So all those elements added up. Ruslan and Dimitri and the whole team from TAS were in Tel Aviv, probably going to put a little bit of money in it. All these other investors came by, and the more investors talked about it, and the more they clarified to themselves what they heard her talk on the stage in Tel Aviv and other stages they've seen her, the more they convinced themselves that it's a good deal. Now, 30 partnerships so far in June 12th till now. What is that, 4 months, right? We didn't get a chance to talk about the partnership between d10e and Bancor because it's still being hatched, but there will be some pretty cool news being announced for all of you to benefit here and future graduating classes of these investment pool prizes that our investors put forth. And Bancor will have even more news to give you on other avenues of how they will diversify what they're doing. So pay attention to Bancor. She's very unique, and I'm very humbled to have you here, all the way from Tel Aviv, from your flip-flops and bathing suit, whatever you were doing this weekend, to snow. So thank you for coming, and you're always welcome to enlighten us with how this will change everything.
Thank you so much. If you permit me just one moment, you know, to elaborate and share something which I hope will be helpful for the token launches that are in the room. You know, the story of June, to me, sounds like the story of a previous era and a previous generation in our industry. It really is moving that fast. But what I've talked to many of you about and what I think is interesting for us to consider is that everything is a trade-off. Right? So we're coming from a world of, let's call it VC financing, primarily for the types of projects that we're building, that entrepreneurs are building, the way that we move technology forward. There are good things and bad things about how venture capital works. And we're sort of swinging the pendulum to the completely other side here. And there are good things and bad things about the way that token sales work. And so to Mike's point about the videos, one of the big differences between raising money from venture capitalists and going to the crowd to help get support for your project is that you're not going to spend 3 hours with most of the people that participate in supporting your initiative, right? So these videos, going to these events, explaining your story, and then sharing those videos, essentially the way we saw it was like digital breadcrumbs for people who are sitting tens of thousands of miles away, who you'll never meet, who you'll never speak to, who don't know anyone that you know, who can't cross-verify your background, giving them as much information online to really understand who you are, what you're about, letting them watch you, answer live questions, be put on the spot like in this moment, and really understand the essence of you, your team, your project, and what you're doing, we hope is the way to create the alignment between the people who support your project and the thing that you're doing. And there are really thousands of other trade-offs between having few investors, having thousands of investors, and I'm happy to talk to you guys about our experiences, what we learned to do and not do, and share anything that's helpful.